Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonja Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
You're watching National Streaming Sports. Over 20 podcasts, 70 shows, and a 3.5-star rating on Roku TV.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
National Streaming Sports is brought to you in part by BetUs.com, designed for true fans. NFL odds, Week 1 and futures, college football odds, including Heisman Trophy favorites and playoff odds, NBA odds of division winners and playoffs, Major League Baseball playoff and World Series odds, the National Hockey League Conference playoffs and Stanley Cup odds, and boxing wagers. Betting opportunities include versus the spreads and outright winners, also during the game. Use our link on our website, nessp.info, the Bet Us Opportunities webpage, for a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. Must be 21 years old, and remember, bet responsibly.
Good morning and welcome to the Mac and Jack Show. I'm here in the place of Mac this morning. We wish him well. Good morning, Jack. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Hey, good morning, Sonja. I had a little technical difficulty as we were coming on. Good timing was good. It got corrected. So I get to, see a warm welcome first thing in the morning.
Absolutely. Definitely good. And thank you. And good morning to all of you who are joining us on the Roku channel. Download that app where you can get 24-hour sports without the cost of cable, and find us on YouTube and all the social media platforms. Jack, been a busy week, at least leading up to here with some draft prospects. The Jets have now acquired Justin Fields. How are you feeling? I know you're a Jets fan. Want to kind of start off talking with you about that.
Yeah, all we're going to be really seeing coming up are all these mock drafts. And it's kind of revealing the moves that these teams made during free agency, the offseason. It kind of indicates to us how they're going to draft per position. For example, the Jets signing Justin Fields as a free agent, that would indicate that if Shedeur Sanders dropped to them, they're probably not going to draft him.
Right.
Same thing with the Raiders, who go one spot at number 6 ahead of the Jets. The idea that they traded for Geno Smith indicates they're probably not going to draft a quarterback. And then you look at Tennessee going at number 1 overall, and they haven't signed or gone after any quarterback of any type of stature during free agency. And that would indicate that they are going to draft Cam Ward at number 1. And the Giants, of course, are an absolute disaster at quarterback. They have no one. They're looking for a bridge quarterback right now, but indications are Maybe they'll draft a quarterback, but Shador Sanders doesn't fit into the Giant culture. But as far as the Jets getting Justin Fields, I like the move. It's basically a 1-year commitment, even though it was a 2-year contract. The amount of money that they're paying them, they can. I think it's $30 million guaranteed. They can get
Yeah.
out of it after one. excuse me, after 1 year. And who knows what the quarterback class is going to be next year. And also, let's not forget there's the second round of the draft. The quarterbacks like Jackson Dart, Quinn Ewers, late on in the draft, maybe third or fourth round, maybe even fifth, Will Howard. And the Jets did draft a quarterback last year, Jordan Travis from Florida. He was hurt, but he does have some upside. So everyone is making their moves, back and forth. But for the most part, most of the teams are set and they're predictable in what they're going to do.
And you did bring up a really good point that, the whole Shador Sanders thing with the culture that he's going to fit into. We've heard, things about him going and meeting with teams like the Titans and having his dad on FaceTime. And, Mike Florio actually spoke about that and talked about how, that's just not a good look. A lot of teams are picking up on that. They don't want the daddy ball. They don't want to have to worry about, is this going to be a different Shador without his dad, or if his dad is going to be super impactful, of being involved in what Shador has going on. Basically, can he be a man and stand on his own in the NFL and, make his own name?
Well, there are a couple of factors involved. Let's not forget. Okay. Shador Sanders has been highly successful. That's why they're talking about him possibly even being the number 1 overall pick in the draft. They're also talking about him possibly dropping out of the first round altogether. So it's a little volatile when it comes to Shador Sanders, draft status. But didn't Dion do a pretty good job with him just to get him to this position? And Dion has a big personality. The media is going to go to him. He'll be critical of Shador's coaching staff if things aren't going Shador's way. If Shador's not performing well, you better believe Dion's going to put some blame elsewhere, if not all the blame elsewhere. And sometimes teams don't want to deal with that. But if you recall, historically, didn't John Elway's dad get super involved in his career? He was a coach too. But I guess it's Dion's personality that might scare teams like the Giants, who have a very conservative culture, and they might decide they don't want to put up with this. They don't want to put up, with Dion, per se. I mean, maybe the answer is just hire Dion as your coach.
Yeah.
Hire him as a coach. I don't know. No, but Dion is a good thing at Colorado. I think he'd be foolish to leave to go elsewhere. But when you're talking about his son, who knows down the line. But but Shador's who says he's going to fail? You have to be optimistic. If you draft him, he is going to be successful. And maybe Dion can help any coaching staff he goes to. After all, Dion's a good coach. He was in the greatest cornerback and the greatest cover man in the history of the NFL. He can help.
He definitely has his own name. I think just for now, kind of the way he went into Colorado, we didn't hear all of this hoopla when he was at Jackson State. We heard about all the good parts of Dion, the fact that he was helping basically highlight all the financial struggles that area had. They had some issues with water down there in Jackson, Mississippi, and just this was all the good Dion. But then once he went to Colorado, it was like prime time is back. And so, not to, go down a rabbit hole with it. It's just one of those things that we just, in the NFL and we as fans just are not interested in seeing that bleed over to the NFL. We have enough drama as is with the NFL. And like you said, if Dion wants to be so involved, go be a coach. It was kind of rumored for a moment that he may actually be in that position with the Raiders before they decided to get Pete Carroll. I heard a couple of rumblings, but I don't know what happened with that.
I think the talk was more about the Dallas Cowboys at some point, where Jerry Jones may have talked or might not have talked to them. I mean, the Cowboys have never had a black head coach. I mean, neither of the Giants for that matter. And I hate to bring that issue up, but with Jerry Jones has been on a coaching carousel. But the thing is, Deion Sanders and Jerry Jones have an excellent relationship. Deion Sanders really admires Jerry Jones a great deal.
He
So
does.
something that perhaps could have worked out. But when all was said and done, I mean, Deion has a good thing at Colorado. There's unfinished business. He's only been there a couple of years. He's made his mark. No one cared about Colorado football outside of the people in the area. But now nationally, people care about their games. If you know Colorado's playing, you might watch. If it wasn't for Deion, you weren't going to watch. You weren't
Right.
and they won. They won. They were actually in playoff contention last year. I mean, Deion has done a good job as a coach. Let's forget his personality for a moment. Deion has had issues in the past. Let's not deny that. And the issues is a direct result of how he is. But there's the upside to Deion. The good side to him. And you got to give him credit as, a smart coach who gets the best out of players. And he seems to be a firm disciplinarian in the process. And look, between Shador and Travis Hunter, he's got two players. At least Travis Hunter is going to go at the top of the draft. Travis Hunter is probably going to be one of the top 3 picks, very probably. And maybe Shador will as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was some rumor that Shador may fall all the way down to the 21st spot. I don't know if that was his jersey number with Pittsburgh, but I was like, there's no way.
No, I'm going to tell you what Shador is going exactly in the draft now. Okay? And after it gets done, people are going to say they knew this and that. Shador Sanders is going to be drafted 9th by the New Orleans Saints.
Oh, my goodness.
He's going to be the New Orleans Saints' new franchise quarterback. He is going to fall to number 9. Even though, look, Carolina goes number 8. They got Bryce Young. We're not
interested in Shador.
Exactly, and shouldn't be. The Jets go number 7, but they just got Justin Fields. Even though they're not sold on Justin Fields being their quarterback of the future, yet they want to give Justin Fields that opportunity to maybe be their quarterback of the future. And if you draft Shador Sanders, that means you're definitely not having Justin Fields as your quarterback of the future. That signifies Justin Fields is nothing more than a bridge quarterback. And I think that's the Jets' attitude. I think they want to wait and see, keep an open book on Justin Fields and see what happens. And you can't do it drafting Shador Sanders. The Raiders at number 6. Geno Smith just reunited with Pete Carroll.
Yes.
So they're not going to, I can't see them drafting Shador Sanders. Pete Carroll's going to want to win now. And they didn't get Geno Smith to necessarily play 1 year. That maybe the attitude is for Pete Carroll. He could play a few more years for me. I've coached him before. So he's not going to go there at number 6. At number 5 is Jacksonville. They got Trevor Lawrence. They're not going to say we give up on Trevor Lawrence and draft Shador Sanders. He's not going there. Number 4, New England, Drake May. Shador doesn't have a chance to go there. Number 3,
absolutely doesn't.
He's at play at 1, 2, or 3, both quarterbacks, because Tennessee goes first. Tennessee's definitely drafting a quarterback, probably Cam Ward, possibly Shador. At number 2 is Cleveland. They might draft Shador if he's there at number 2, but they might go for Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. They just got Kenny Pickett.
Yes, they did.
And they might feel, well, we could take a chance with Kenny Pickett. Maybe, we could get by and let us get Abdul Carter, an edge rusher, and Pam with Myles Garrett. Number 3 are the Giants. Great landing spot for Shador, but they might be thinking, well, let's take Travis Hunter. He's a great player. And we'll get a veteran quarterback now. And look at the second round, the Giants, and say maybe we could get Jackson Dart in the second round. We'll draft up from the second round. We'll flip-flop number 2 picks, and we'll give a number 3 pick this year and a number 3 pick next year, or a number 2 pick next year as well. So I get the feeling that's the Giants' strategy. They're going to get their quarterback, Jackson Dart, somehow by drafting up a little.
Yeah, you brought up a point that I've always been interested in. And good morning to all of our watchers coming in. Hello. Feel free to make a comment. We will address it. I wanted to ask you about just for a quick moment. You talked about bridge quarterbacks and franchise quarterbacks, and here we are with Justin Fields now with his third team in as many years almost now with you guys as the Jets. I mean, he's only being signed to a 1-year contract. That kind of relates to bridge quarterback material that if given the opportunity, even it's probably extremely unlikely, but say for instance, the odds just lined up that Shador could be drafted by the Jets. Would you guys take him, or would you stick with Justin Fields since you gave him this 1-year contract?
Me, I would draft Shador, and I would have told Justin Fields, you're coming to the Jets with the understanding we might draft a quarterback. We're not sure what we're going to do in that regard. But I think the interpretation, what you just mentioned with a bridge quarterback, has to be cleared up. Someone is a bridge quarterback only if you expect him to quarterback your team for that whole year or part of that year. Mm-hmm. And then someone else is going to take over. In other words, he's keeping the seat warm for someone else. He's holding someone's place online.
Yep.
That's what he's basically doing. Justin Fields isn't quite in that position. They want to wait and see the Jets. Well, let him show us something. Maybe he's going to show us he should be our quarterback, okay, if he plays well enough. But once you draft Shador Sanders, that means whoever's the quarterback ahead of Shador is on the clock. That means it's a matter of time before he's getting replaced by the guy who got drafted. And that's the most uncomfortable position of all. I mean, it even happened to Aaron Rodgers at Green Bay.
Okay.
The Packers moved up in the draft in the first round to draft Jordan Love, and that's when Rodgers was playing well. And he was an icon in Green Bay, but they figured the Packers, Rodgers is older. At some point in the future, he's going to slow up. And we're going to have Jordan Love ready to take over for him. The only reason Rodgers held Jordan Love off, he had a couple of phenomenal seasons, a back-to-back MVP seasons. So at that point, the Packers couldn't do anything with Jordan Love, as long as Rodgers is playing at that high level. But we're talking Justin Fields here. He's not likely to have an MVP type of season. We don't know what type of season he'll have. You mentioned this is the third place Justin Fields has been. To keep this in mind, he was the Bear quarterback for most of the 3 years he was with the Bears, okay? He was. And the Bears didn't know what to make out of him after 3 years. They didn't know whether he could be their guy or not, but they moved on from him because they had the number 1 pick in the draft. Thank you, Carolina Panthers. That went to the Bears, and they were able to draft Caleb Williams. Mm-hmm. And Caleb Williams was going to play under rookie contract, so they weren't going to have to deal with big salaries and the cap and the whole bit. And then he goes to Pittsburgh, and he goes head-to-head against Russell Wilson. But you get the feeling Mike Tomlin's decision was made in advance. He's seen Russell Wilson play over the years, so he gave Russell Wilson the edge at Pittsburgh. And it's revealing to this, Sonja. Why didn't Pittsburgh make a push to hold on to Justin Fields to be their quarterback next year? Right. They could have done it. Pittsburgh could have said, we're moving on from Russell Wilson. We're giving Justin Fields the job. Let him be our quarterback. They know what he could do. He was with them the whole year, practicing with them, playing.
And did well. He was only 4-2 with them.
But they're looking at his upside. How good they think he's going to be. And Mike Tomlin apparently feels he's not the long-term answer. Yeah. And Pittsburgh hasn't resolved their quarterback situation, yet they were willing to move on from Justin Fields. It kind of tells you a little something there. But I think Justin Fields is kind of in the middle with the Jets. Okay? And we're going to see what he could do going forward. And if he has a good year, the way Geno Smith did, the way he revived his career at Seattle, the Jets would be willing to move forward with Justin Fields and see whether his potential could grow or whatever.
Yeah, I just feel like it's one of those situations that like we always talk about, Jack. You know, you and I are on the Sunday morning big football show with Mac and Keith Angle and J Train and of course Pags when he could come in and a plethora of other people. We always talk about, you know, the thematics behind these quarterbacks, and it just feels like sometimes we're in rebuild season again because you're only as strong as your quarterback is. The team is only as good as their quarterback is. That's their leader, even if it's a rookie. That person could be thrown into that position of being a leader. We saw it with CJ Stroud. He came into an organization and took control, and those guys respected him, and the Texans looked absolutely good that first year. Now they've had a little bit of a sophomore slump this past season, but overall, you know, the Texans have come a long way from where they were. Justin Fields, you know, like I said, it kind of says a lot when you're only given 1 year contract. We saw Atlanta do the same thing with Kirk Cousins and then went into the draft and drafted Michael Penix Jr. And now the Falcons have basically benched Kirk. Kirk has gone to Arthur Blank and basically said, you know, I don't even want to be a second. I'm not a backup quarterback. I want to go somewhere else. But the Falcons held on to him past the March 11th trade deadline, and now they had to kick out another $90 million of his salary. And it's just a very unfortunate and ugly picture in Atlanta. And I just feel like that same type of scenario could go on if perhaps the Jets were to draft a quarterback. With the exception, you guys are only signing Justin Fields for 1 year, and you didn't pay him all this billions of dollars like the Falcons did Kirk Cousins.
Well, Justin Fields doesn't quite have the same status as Kirk Cousins because Kirk Cousins has been a starter for most of his NFL career and has been a prominent starter as well. He's been somewhat highly regarded. So Justin Fields never quite got there. I mean, if Justin Fields didn't go to the Jets, I mean, there's a good chance he would wind up somewhere as a backup, perhaps, or like we said, a bridge quarterback. You know, would start the season for Tennessee or Cleveland or the Giants if they drafted a quarterback. I mean, we don't know. As far as Kirk Cousins goes, what the heck is he complaining about? You had the Atlanta Falcons starting job. You played lousy, Kirk. You were terrible. Yeah. You were just about the worst quarterback in the league. You were dreadful. That's why he got benched for Michael Penix. Now, everyone was shocked when Atlanta drafted Michael Penix at number 8. Everyone was shocked, especially Kirk Cousins, who wasn't informed that could be a possibility when he signed with Atlanta.
They called him like a few minutes before they picked.
Yeah, but you're correct there. But Michael Penix was never going to see the field last season if Kirk Cousins played up to his standards.
Absolutely.
But Kirk Cousins was awful, so Michael Penix got the job to start. Atlanta would love to get rid of Kirk Cousins in a salary, but they have no takers.
No one's
going
to
pay
right.
it. So why should Atlanta pay another team to have Kirk Cousins? They'd rather have Kirk Cousins as a backup in case Michael Penix, who has an injury history, gets hurt.
Right.
If Michael Penix gets injured, Kirk Cousins is in, again, and he'll have a chance to reestablish himself. But who would Kirk Cousins, if he did go anywhere, let's say hypothetically Atlanta accommodated Kirk Cousins, he'd be no more than a bridge quarterback. He'd go to the Cleveland Browns and keep the seat warm for whoever they drafted. It wouldn't be the plan to go forward with Kirk Cousins beyond 1 year at most, if even that.
Yeah, it's the same situation as Carolina, who, by the way, just re-signed Andy Dalton. And Andy Dalton and Kirk Cousins have been in the league about the same amount of time. but Andy was playing pretty good, until he, basically, got this thumb injury. We didn't get no wins with him. He was a placeholder because Bryce was our starter. We sold the farm for him. Thank God we're paying back all those debts this year by giving Chicago their last draft, which is in the second round, pick number 57. And then we're paid in full for Bryce. And Bryce is finally, paying it in full for us, looks like a little bit. Hopefully we can get some wins. But it's the same situation. You hate to see it because you see these quarterbacks who've been franchise quarterbacks for a very long time, and you see them perform well in peaks and valleys, and then it's kind of like it ebbs and flows. You're like, okay, this may be their quarterback, and then the old former part of themselves, the reason why they were traded or backline for the second spot, becomes more apparent. Um, such a big name to think about. Kirk Cousins, when he was with the Vikings, he played solid. Of course, they never got through the postseason. He's never been a postseason winning quarterback. Let's put that out there. But he got him there. I think he was there when they had the Minnesota Miracle against the New Orleans Saints, and they got a chance to go into the playoffs during that time. Was he the quarterback that year, Jack, in 2018?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's as far as we've seen him go. But that was the height of his career. And unfortunately, ageism takes over. The body takes over. Everything they've gone through and been in the league for such a long amount of time.
No, he wasn't the quarterback. It was Case Keenum, I believe.
Case Keenum, yeah. I was
wrong. Not Kirk Cousins.
Okay,
no.
yeah, because I was like, was Kirk there? Then Kirk has never been to the playoffs. Let's be clear on that.
No, he was there. The last time he was there was like 2-3 years ago. They lost to the Giants.
Right.
On the playoffs there. And Kirk was kind of criticized the last play of the game when they got stopped. It was something like 4th and 9, and he threw a 4 or 5 yard pass. So it kind of struck people, the wrong way. But, you mentioned with Bryce Young, with paying dividends with the Bears. Obviously, it's a bad deal right now. But if Bryce Young turns out to be the franchise quarterback going forward and has an excellent career, then it winds up being a good deal for the Panthers. It's worthwhile. Bryce Young is so much like the stock market it was last year. His stock at one point last year was so low when he got benched for Andy Dalton. Now, if a team had chutzpah and guts and still believed in Bryce, another team, they could have called the Panthers at that point and said, we're going to give you a second round and a 6th round draft choice right now for Bryce if you make the deal. At that point, I think the Panthers really had basically given up on Bryce. I mean, they gave up on him to the point where they said, well, maybe he could still develop, but we can't count on him anymore. That was their attitude, I think. I think the Panthers absolutely make that deal. A 2nd round draft choice.
Yes, big.
Let's just move on.
Yes.
Like kind of the way the 49ers did when they traded Trey Lance to the Cowboys for a 4th round pick. I mean, a 3rd round draft choice may have done it, to get Bryce at that point. And then Bryce would have started playing well for another team. There's a good chance, and been their quarterback of the future. And the Panther would have figured what the heck happened. But when you look at the Panther organization, Baker Mayfield flops there, Sam Darnold flops there, but they go on to other teams and they're excellent.
And flourish.
And they're excellent. And Bryce, you kind of wonder, could you imagine the same thing would have happened? Bryce goes to another team and he plays really well, like the Jets pick him up or whatever, and he's really good.
Yeah, I am ever the bitter fan right now because we are going into 10 seasons since we've had a good season since that Super Bowl run. Next year will be 10 years since we made a playoff appearance, and we haven't even won the NFC South. Like, it's not like the South is the best division to win, but it's just been, we can't even get to the top of the toilet bowl. When back before that, we were back-to-back divisional winners for the conference or whatever, for that specific division. We can't even get there, and I feel like hopefully this year is a really good year. Bryce finished out about 92%. He went a couple of weeks. He was the highest ranked quarterback in the league, which was shocking considering how we had started out. Week 10, I believe, in week 13, they had him ranked as the top quarterback. And there were a lot of close games that were winnable games, but Bryce couldn't do everything himself. He couldn't pass, run, and make all the plays himself. And so getting that offensive line on board, Xavier Legette and all those guys, and hopefully getting Jonathan Brooks back from the injury he suffered. He came into the draft injured, and as soon as he was cleared to play, like 2 games later, he was injured again. And so the Panthers released all their medical staff because they felt like they were negligent in clearing him too early to return. So got a whole new medical staff with the team. And so hopefully this is the year that we propel past everything. You know, they say third year's a charm. This will be Bryce's third season. And honestly, Jack, this is the season that has to be the turnaround season. We can't just be like, okay, Bryce is playing good. We need the dubs. We have to get those dubs because they've invested so much. And like you said, even if we don't get the dubs, his personal stock is going to go down. The longer he stays with a team that does not win, it's a reflection on what he looks like if another team was interested in grabbing him.
No, they're not. The Panthers aren't interested in trading him. I mean, if you want an example, something similar, parallel, look at Kyler Murray with Arizona. They haven't quite been winning, but they're in a position where they could contend. And next season, the NFC East is going to be a little weaker. The 49ers aren't quite the same team they were before. You know, the Rams, chances are the Rams will be good up there, about 10-7 again. And we don't know what's in Seattle. I can't, I don't think anyone's scared of Seattle. So, but with the Panthers, they'll finish ahead of the New Orleans Saints in that division. I could say that. I mean, the Saints look like they're going to have the hardest time. And Tampa Bay, Atlanta, both teams might be up around 9-8, so the Panthers could contend. And, if things fall their way and Bryce Young makes a big leap, I mean, it's conceivable they could win the division, but it's too early to analyze that.
Yeah, and I mean, Jack, I absolutely love you for at least saying we'll be above one team this division. I would really love that, especially if it's the Saints. Sorry, J Train, if you're watching. But we just are tired of being at the bottom.
Well, J Train is going to have Shedeur Sanders as this New Orleans Saint quarterback. I'm telling you where he's going.
Okay. He should be excited.
I will be shocked. This would be the shock of the draft. If Shedeur Sanders is at number 9 for the Saints, which I think he'll be, you can't be sure. Maybe he won't, but I believe he will be. And imagine the Saints pass on him.
Oh,
they have a new coach. They have a new coach, Kellen Moore.
Yes.
And I couldn't imagine the Saints figuring, well, we don't want to deal with Dion. That would be insane. But
everybody says that, but nobody's gonna care when it comes.
Or the Saints draft Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. They might think, oh, well, he's got potential. Let's go with him, and we don't have to. They draft another quarterback. So,
well, we don't know. And you brought up the NFC East being a lot weaker, and that leads me into our next. A lot of drafts trades have already happened above the draft. The draft about 6 weeks away, end of April coming up. DK Metcalf gets his wish, and he's out of Seattle now. So that definitely weakens him. I don't know. Let's run through some of these signings real quick. Sam Darnold, by the way, we brought him up earlier. He is now the quarterback for Seattle, with Geno Smith being the bombshell trade that we did not see coming. Were you surprised about Geno Smith being traded, Jack?
I was surprised because, he went for a 3rd-round draft choice. He's reuniting with Pete Carroll. That's not,
for the Raiders.
That's not a surprise. Seattle reportedly wanted to keep Geno Smith and let him continue to be the quarterback, but they didn't want to give him the big quarterback money, and they shouldn't because he's not an elite quarterback. They wanted to pay him a modest amount for start, about $30 million a year. The $25-30 million range a year, 2-year contract. they would have guaranteed him about the same that they were guaranteeing Sam Darnold, around in the $55 million, guaranteed range. But he wanted like $45 million a year. And they weren't going to have a long negotiation with Geno Smith. They just didn't think he was an elite quarterback for that type of money, even though they felt he could continue to, be their starting quarterback. And DK Metcalf, he's one of these wide receivers who, I don't want to say prima donna wide receivers, but they all have big egos. They want to be the best, but they need a partner, a quarterback who could really throw to them. And apparently he didn't feel that Geno Smith was that guy because, he demanded the trade when Geno Smith was still the quarterback there. So he goes to Pittsburgh. Right now, who's his quarterback? Mason Rudolph at this moment?
Yes. I know Pittsburgh has got to be drafting somebody, Jack. They're just not going to just hang like.
They can't draft. I mean, it's easy to say draft someone. I mean, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are probably going to be off the board by the time Pittsburgh drafts. And you don't want to reach on a quarterback. They drafted Kenny Pickett in the first round when they went in the 20s, Pittsburgh, and it didn't work out. I can understand Kenny Pickett played for Pitt in college, so it was like a great marriage for him to go to the Steelers. Everything came into place, especially since the Steelers decades ago didn't draft another quarterback from Pitt by the name of Dan Marino when his number was called, late in the first round for Pittsburgh. But, they've been speaking with Aaron Rodgers, whatever. But if I'm the Steelers, I get sick of Aaron Rodgers. I would basically give him an ultimatum. I'd say, look, Aaron, it's decision time.
Mm-hmm.
Either you're going to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers or not. Tell us what you want from us, but we have to have a resolution. Let's hear from you what you want. What are your conditions for coming here? And if we're comfortable with your conditions, we'll make this work and it'll be, a great partnership. And if the Steelers aren't comfortable and Rodgers says he needs more time, then it's not going to work out. I could understand Aaron Rodgers putting off the Giants, a team like that. You want to know why? Because he might be thinking, I'm going to go to the Giants, but they're going to draft a quarterback at number 3. I don't want to have to deal with that. And then I understand. But Pittsburgh is not going to be in position to draft an elite quarterback. They'll be able to draft maybe Jackson Dart, maybe Quinn Ewers if they want. They probably won't even do that because they got Mason Rudolph as their backup.
Yep, they signed him to a 2-year, $8 million deal. That's what I was going to say. And they're picking it at number 21 in the draft. So the chances are Shedeur will be likely gone by that point.
You never know. I mean, Shedeur is such a wild card. I doubt if he goes number 1 to Tennessee. They seem to be locked in on Cam Ward. But there's a possibility he could go there. And I could conceivably see him fall to number 21. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he goes number 9 to New Orleans. But if New Orleans passes on him, it's like, wow.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. And speaking of wow moments, we have these quarterbacks. I'm going to be honest with you, Jack. If Aaron Rodgers, let me just put this out here because I don't want to spend too much time on him, but I have to make this point. If Aaron Rodgers does not get picked up by a team and he basically goes home, he's actually hinting around like, hey, if I don't get picked up, I may retire. But that doesn't mean anything. Players come out of retirement all the time. If he doesn't get picked up by a team and he goes home, and he ends up being another Joe Flacco that they just call him in as a rotating quarterback to whatever team needs him for injuries or whatever. That says a lot. I mean, if he goes home, the longer he's home, the less likely it is he will be picked up to be a starting quarterback, right?
No, I think your terminology is a little off, not picked up. Aaron Rodgers can pick up the phone. There are a few teams he could make a call today, and they'll come to an agreement for him to be their starting quarterback next season. He can call the Cleveland Browns and say, I want to play for you guys. If we can work out a contract, I want to, and Cleveland would start him over Kenny Pickett.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He could
Absolutely.
call Tennessee. Tennessee will tell him we might draft a quarterback. Rodgers will say, I don't care, it's okay. And Tennessee might say, okay, you'll be our starting quarterback to start the season. He could call the Giants. He can be the Giants starting quarterback at the beginning of the year at least. Even if they draft a quarterback, Aaron Rodgers will start the season. Okay? And they won't use the term bridge quarterback for Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
He's
not
going to
Aaron Rodgers.
mentor a quarterback, because Aaron Rodgers is considered an all-time great quarterback. The Joe Flacco's aren't. So you kind of use different terms.
Yeah.
And, and if he went to the Steelers, he wouldn't have anyone looking over his shoulders. It's not a question of picking up. He can call a number of teams. So Aaron Rodgers might do this. No one mentions this strategy, Sonja. Keep in shape. And during the season, at some point, it might be early in the season, it might be the first game of the season, one of the starting quarterbacks league-wise is going to go down with an injury.
Yes.
A long-term injury. And look at the backups of all those teams. And Aaron Rodgers would be a better option to start than the backups on those teams.
That's true.
I'm not saying the starters, the backups on those teams. Even your Panthers. Yeah. I know you like Andy Dalton, but it would be intriguing if Bryce Young had to miss time and you had Aaron Rodgers with Andy Dalton. You'd figure Andy's done a good job. We like Andy, but let's roll the dice.
Yeah, you're right, Jack.
I'm
excited to hear that. Yeah.
Let's roll the dice because it's going to energize the fan base.
Right.
Something different, the big name. So maybe that's his strategy. He's going to keep in shape and join a team during the season.
Yeah, that's actually super good that you came up with that, Jack. You're always such a brainiac behind these things. And good morning to everybody coming on. I'm co-hosting in the place of Mac. I'm Sonja, host of Prim and Proper Sports, and I'm on with Jack and them on everything else. You guys know Jack, and this is the Mac and Jack show. For all of you all who are just waking up.
Well, we miss Mac. We miss Mac. I love doing this show with you, Sonja. But Mac's my guy, Mac's my starting quarterback. But you're the best backup in the league.
Oh, thank you so much, Jack. And yes, Mac, we definitely miss you. We hope you are getting the rest you need and that you can rejoin us soon. We love you and we're praying for you. And hi to you, Miss Linda, as well, over on National Streaming Sports Network. All right. So you mentioned some of these signings moving a little bit past Aaron Rodgers. They don't have the big names he has. And so that's why they're kind of doing a musical chairs before the draft. Gardner Minshew, again, moved around. This time, the Chiefs are giving him an opportunity. They're giving him a one-year deal. That may be his opportunity to win a ring should they go back next year. I'm not saying he's going to be the starting quarterback, but he's on the roster.
Whoa. So, you did most of the show mistake-free. And now I knew you had to fumble the ball at some point. Yeah, you weren't fumbling the ball. You don't think he'll be the starting quarterback with Patrick Mahomes?
Not gonna be.
Does he have a prayer of ever starting with Patrick Mahomes healthy? No. Patrick Mahomes can throw 5 interceptions each game, the first 2 games of the season, the first 3 games of the season, and he's still going to start ahead of Gardner Minshew.
We've seen Patrick Mahomes get hurt and go out of the game, and we're like, okay, that's it. And then here he comes back out in a wheelchair, basically throwing passes.
No, Gardner Minshew's kicked around. Look, he's had a little success from time to time. he had a chance. He had the starting job for the Raiders. It didn't quite work out at Indianapolis. He kind of was there with Anthony Richardson. It didn't quite work out. He was with Philadelphia. It didn't quite work out. He had some good games. Now and then he had a good game. He's a competent backup. He was at Jacksonville too.
Yes.
And Urban Meyer, who, foolishly said as soon as they drafted Trevor Lawrence at the first overall pick in the draft, said he's competing with Gardner Minshew for the number one spot in the draft, to be the starting quarterback. If I were the owner, I would have called Urban Meyer into the office and said, cut this out right now.
Absolutely, right away.
You're making yourself look bad. You mean to tell me Gardner Minshew is going to beat this guy out? And we picked him number one overall in the draft, But Urban Meyer is no longer the coach at Jacksonville because of foolishness like that, amongst other things, even though he was highly successful when he was in college. But Carson Wentz, he's available. No one talks about him. I don't know why
the Super Bowl winning Carson Wentz too. So
he didn't play in the Super Bowl. He was part of the team regular season. He contributed.
Yes, he got them to the Super Bowl. They got Nick Foles out of the forest hunting with his family out of the fields, he says.
No, Foles was with the team all along. Wentz got injured and was out. But Wentz is available for some team. But that might seem intriguing, Sonja. Say Carson Wentz, he was a top pick in the draft at one point, and he was the Eagle franchise quarterback. He helped them get to a Super Bowl, and you're all excited about that. But Carson Wentz went to the Indianapolis Colts. It didn't work out. He went to the Washington Commanders. It didn't work out. He went to the Chiefs as a backup. He's been to 3 other teams since then, and now he's available. So is he worth taking a flyer on? If you're not counting on him to be a starter, okay. If you draft a quarterback highly and need a bridge quarterback, I could live with a team taking a shot, a chance on Carson Wentz as a fill-in. Maybe he gets an opportunity elsewhere, because once in a while, a quarterback does revive his career. It doesn't happen often. It's rare. But in the case of a Geno Smith, he revived his career after a lot of years as being no more than a backup. So, you can never tell.
Yeah, it's going to depend on, like I said, the team they go to. I mean, you mentioned it earlier in the show. The Panthers had Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. Both looked just average and below average with the team. And then they went otherwise. Even Christian McCaffrey is a running back until he got injured. He flourished. It's the team, Jack.
But sometimes you have to see what was the quarterback situation when he moved on to another team. And sometimes the quarterback didn't flop the way people think.
Yeah.
When the Jets moved on from Sam Darnold, they weren't sure that they wanted to move on from him. But they wound up with the number 2 overall pick in the draft. And the thinking was, do we give Sam a big contract, a starting quarterback contract, or do we get someone on a rookie deal? And when you pick that high in the draft, you have an opportunity to draft a quarterback. And with Cleveland, they wouldn't anti-Baker Mayfield. He would have continued as their starter, but Deshaun Watson was available. And at that point, Deshaun Watson was considered an elite quarterback. So they had an opportunity to sign Deshaun Watson. Now, has it been a disastrous signing? Absolutely. Absolutely.
On every aspect.
But if Deshaun Watson performed on the field for Cleveland the way he did for Houston, people wouldn't be talking about off-the-field issues, what a mess it is. But he's been horrendous on the field. Now he's injured with the Achilles. So it's turned out to be one of the worst signings, in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, it's worse, though, because of all of the off-field issues, and they involve other people. And this is just a society that really frowns on certain accusations more than other stuff. Like, say, for instance, he was accused of selling drugs or something like that. yes, bad, but we probably would have mentally moved on from that. But when you have crimes that involve victims, it's just a whole different ballgame, and so many of them. But I was told this week he actually got engaged, Jack. So anybody can turn their life around. So best of luck to him. I don't know. I think Cleveland hopefully finally moves on from him at this point. They signed him basically for 50 years. I mean, I don't even know how they get out of it, and who pays them to get him out of this contract. I think he signed to like 2030 or something.
No, well, they still owe him a substantial amount, and then there are cap implications. So he's on the contract, I think, a couple of more years. And
2027.
Okay. So people might say, just move on from this player, that player. But you don't want to give something away. If you could still get some use out of the player, so he's injured, they'll kind of stick with him and see if he could come back from the injury at some point. And who knows? I mean, nothing's to be gained just paying his salary and letting him go to another team, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm looking up his salary information right now to just ensure that I have it correct. He has a $36 million cap hit this season, $46 million in cash for this season. He's already earned $766,978 with them. He got a 5-year contract, looks like hold on, let me see when they signed it. He signed through 2027. Every year he's basically guaranteed $230 million total.
That was his total. That was his total contract.
Yeah, that's the total contract. And so, he still has on the what's left of it a whole 110 million of it. So no one's gonna pay that, considering, like you said, he's been injured a lot and he's not performing. Even when he's supposedly healthy, he's still not performing well.
No one is going to give Cleveland anything substance in return. I don't think anyone wants Deshaun Watson because of his off the field issues and what he can give you now as a quarterback. I mean, they don't see the upside, to take any type of chance for him to come over. So Cleveland knows they have to live with them. They can cut them all together and give him the money, I guess. I don't know what the cap hit, even though you mentioned what a number would be. So I guess they just give him his roster spot, keep him on injured reserve now, and draft. And I think they'll draft a quarterback, but I'm not sure with Cleveland going second. They might roll with Kenny Pickett, and it might be Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter going number 2.
Yeah, they may do that. I want to ask you something, Jack, because I don't always like your Panthers takes, but sometimes I do. I want to talk about 2 trades that have been made. One of them being the Panthers signing Rico Dowdle to $6.25 million as the running back. What do you think about that signing?
I don't think we should be giving the Panthers all this time. We talked about them earlier. So
no, we just gave them like a minute.
Not the Philadelphia Eagles.
We talked about your Jets for like 10 minutes.
I don't know what that signing. You tell me that big signing was their cornerback, J.C. Horn. That was their big signing. They gave him big money, J.C. Horn, to pay the corner. And he was, funny thing, the Panthers drafted 8th this year, and I believe J.C. Horn was drafted number 8, if I'm not mistaken.
That's why it's our lucky year. We're going to go all the way.
Yeah, number 8 again. So if this year's pick could be as good as the J.C. Horn pick, that'll be nice.
Okay, what do you think about Cooper Kupp returning home to Washington? He's now with the Seattle Seahawks. That was a big shocker to me.
Sometimes players make moves based on geography where they want to live. It's not always a football move.
Yeah.
It appears he likes the idea of coming home to the state of Washington, living in Seattle. He's certainly going to be helpful for Sam Darnold. They lost Tyler Lockett as well as a receiver, and DK Metcalf.
Yes.
Cooper Kupp coming in, a smart veteran, it's going to help Seattle. I'm not optimistic about where Seattle's going to finish this year. But apparently Cooper Kupp wants to be home or close to home, so he's going to Seattle.
And I said Cup. I should have said, yeah, I'm sorry. Coop. I was trying to get the salary part down. I don't see it yet. But he got a nice, I think they signed him for 2 years.
Yeah, I don't think he got big money. He got released by the Rams over the cap. Ignore those birds, Sonja. The birds.
Those were birds? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. I mean, either that or you got to call 911, but they were birds.
Oh, wow.
Now, the Rams.
Florida, right?
Yeah. The Rams, they got Devontae Adams in the offseason as a wideout for Matthew Stafford. And so Cooper Kupp under the cap or something becomes expendable. That's what I don't like about the sport. There should be exceptions to the cap with veteran players who've been on their team for a number of years. Teams should be able to sign them without any cap implications at all. Because you want to see a player like Cooper Kupp, who's been with the Rams all those years, his whole career, finish his career as a Ram. That's what he would have wanted. I would guess that's what they would have preferred as well. But because of cap implications, they come to the conclusion that Cooper Kupp, a Super Bowl MVP, even though it should have gone to Aaron Donald that year, they find the Rams Cooper Kupp all of a sudden is expendable, so they're going to move on from him.
Yes, and good morning, Yoli. I see you waking up in the Midwest. She's an hour behind us, so it's now 8:00 her time. Thank you so much for joining us.
What city?
She's in the Green Bay, Chicago area.
Oh, okay.
So she's in Wisconsin. I think she lives outside
division, the same division, Green Bay and Chicago.
Yes, and I remember that because she's a Green Bay fan, but she lives, I believe, in Illinois, like right on the line somewhere outside of Chicago. Jack, it's been a fun show. As we get ready to wrap up here, I just want to talk to you about, there's been a little conversation about the highest paid wide receivers. These, it's become a competition sometimes at the bank. Tyreek Hill, $30 million average per year. Jamar Chase, $40.3 million average per year. Those two, and then of course you got CD Lamb, $34 million average per year. Is it really a competition, or do these guys really deserve this amount?
No. Justin Jefferson was the highest paid receiver till Jamar Chase went a little
Justin Jefferson. I'm sorry, $35 million.
And Tyreek Hill isn't going to be getting a bigger contract later on. He's basically maxed out. Again, like we mentioned early in the show, part of it's the quarterback throwing it to you. And Tyreek Hill left Kansas City. He had some good moments with the Dolphins, but it really hasn't quite completely worked out there for him, especially with the success the Chiefs would have after Tyreek Hill left. But yeah, I mean, it does become a little bit of a competition in any position. A player resets the market. The next great wide receiver is going to look at who the top paid wide receiver is, and he's going to want to exceed that. Or if he doesn't exceed that, he's going to want to be in the ballpark of $40 million. Like Garrett Wilson, the Jet receiver. If he has a big year this year, he's going to look at the $40 million mark. And even if he doesn't have to be the top wide receiver, he's going to say, you got to not pay me $37 million.
Beating Justin.
Ballpark. Yeah, but Jamar Chase is arguably the best wide receiver in football. In my opinion, him and Justin Jefferson, a 1-2, whatever order you want to put them in.
Yeah, and even with Brandon Ayuk making $30 million, he's up on, possible trade talks. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who went to the playoffs last year with Detroit, is at $30 million as well. And don't forget A.J. Brown from the Super Bowl winning Eagles, $32 million for him. And when these players go to the playoffs, that's when they can actually, require a little bit bigger money though, right, Jack?
If I'm a running back, I'm really angry. Saquon Barkley just signed a 2-year extension. $41.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
And most of it, I think a good part of it is guaranteed. and everyone's making a big deal about it. Saquon says he's happy about it because he's the highest paid running back in the history of the NFL. So in that sense, yeah, the Eagles are doing right by Saquon, and it's a good deal in that sense, getting paid more than any running back ever did in history. But when you compare to what he's getting paid to these wide receivers, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley is so much more valuable than a Tyreek Hill. Yeah, are you kidding me? A T. Higgins, he's much more valuable to the Eagles than those other guys are to their team, even though I'm not questioning how valuable the wide receivers are, but not compared to Saquon Barkley, but because he's a running back, he gets a little underpaid. Oh, I see time's run out. The clock's run out on us. I'm sorry, Sonja.
Yes, no worries. It's been a fun show. Jack and I will rejoin you on Friday with Keith Angle joining us as well for the Mac and Jack show. Tonight, we got a big day of shows here on National Streaming Sports. We got the coffee show coming up coast to coast with Bo. Tonight's Prim and Proper Sports, and this afternoon is going to be the National Streaming Sports Professional Show with all the guys and myself. Jack, thank you so much for allowing me to join you on today. We wish everybody a great day, and we will see you guys soon.
You're watching National Streaming Sports. Over 20 podcasts, 70 shows, and a 3.5-star rating on Roku TV.